Hello and welcome back to a hybrid news and discussion video. Basically, some very interesting stuff has happened, and today was originally going to be a Mogushan Vault soloing video, but with this happening, it's time to push that video back until tomorrow. I actually nearly feel bad for the MSV video. For over a week it's been continually pushed back in favor of other nifty stuff. But let's just jump into the news. There's two big things here. Now, the first one is the Blackrock Foundry item levels being changed, and the next thing is just a quick little mention about the Blizzcon dates and some info about that. First of all though, let's tackle the item levels. So they are planning to increase the item levels of all Blackrock Foundry gear by 5, and this should be included in a hotfix next week. This also extends to the max upgrade Apexis and crafted gear. It's a very interesting development that I sort of mostly agree with. My thoughts will come later though. Here's what Blizzard had to say, and I'll just paraphrase the main points that they had. So first of all, groups moving on from High Mall to Blackrock Foundry at the intended difficulty, i.e. normal to normal or heroic to heroic, are not finding a large enough and satisfying enough increase in gear in terms of the item levels. Apparently this was especially prevalent for the people who were doing a full 2 months raiding in High Mall. Second, they said that the primary goal is not to nerf Blackrock Foundry, and if that were the goal, then what they would do is go through the fights on a fight-by-fight basis and tweak them down. So they said their aim is to patch up rewards, and the nerf, a nerf isn't really the primary goal. Thirdly, they said the big problem is that groups were putting in wipe after wipe in Blackrock for bosses that, in Blizzard's words, dropped loot that was of roughly the same quality as what they were already wearing. Okay, so time for my take on this, because I actually think it's a pretty fascinating topic, just to talk about, I suppose, how this raid tier in general has played out in terms of a few different things. So first of all, I'm sure everyone has got this word nerf floating around in their head, so let's tackle that. And yeah, this is technically a nerf, as boss power is not being increased in relation to the gear changes. Realistically, it's going to mean that most Blackrock Foundry raid groups will get a few extra item levels on average, which is perhaps, I'd say, equal to maybe 1 or 2 weeks of farming up the bosses that your team will have on farm anyway. So it's a good old kick up the arse for sure. Now, Blackrock Foundry has been kind of interesting in terms of difficulty. I can say that my guild has cleared 5 out of 10 heroic, and we are, look, we can kill Chromog, it's just there's a bit of a healer mana issue, so once that's done, Chromog will be dead. It's one of those fights, you know you've got it down, because you can do, like, the whole iteration or two of all the mechanics. It's just a healer issue. And then we're also practicing on the train guy. So chances are, for us, this will help with Chromog quite a bit, and I'm sure that many groups will be fighting a boss where they're just slightly not making it, and something like this will perhaps get them through. So really, if anything, it's just going to accelerate us up maybe 1 or 2 weeks worth of player power, which I guess is going to be sort of helpful. Now, there does seem to be quite an uptick in difficulty as you move throughout Blackrock Foundry, and interestingly, it does seem like it's very high in comparison to normal, at least based on what I've heard from one of Preach's latest videos, and also looking at some statistics. Of course, Preach was mainly talking about Mythic, but apparently Mythic is absolutely just rock hard this time around in comparison to what it normally is. So perhaps stuff like that is leading to more burnout than Blizzard expected. It's very hard to know, honestly, but I find it hard to believe that Blizzard are not okay with the fights being a few % easier. I think this is certainly a case of them being able to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. And I suppose in respect to it being technically a nerf, I just don't think it is a particularly ginormous deal at the minute. It's not like they're just flat out making everything 10% easier. That would be a little bit crazy. Though, I suppose in terms of game design, I should quickly mention that in terms of doing a nerf, I do prefer the idea of, you know, making the gear that you can get a little bit better. I prefer that sort of. In comparison, just the goalposts are moved and the fights are 10% easier. Sure, maybe the numbers could work out so that they are exactly the same, but the difference with doing it via gear is that at least gear is earned by players, and that can work out a little bit better. I think a great example of that was the item upgrade system, as clunky as it may have been, and back in Siege of Orgrimmar. Technically, that was a steadily increasing nerf on the content, a bit like what happened with ICC. The difference was, though, the people actually earned it. So I think if they do nerf things, systems like that can, I think, be a little bit easier to palate, because sometimes it does feel a bit weird when, boom, a big nerf just happened and you feel, oh, is my kill really valid? Anyway, I said Blizzard were knocking out two birds with one stone, so let's talk about the other bird, which is rewards. And I do agree with their goal here. I don't think it feels particularly rewarding moving up, especially with the advent of our garrison giving us gear above what we currently raid, there being the competitive Apexis gear, and then, of course, the extremely competitive 3 crafted slots that we can use. This means that before we actually even count Blackrock Foundry gear, we already have access to lots of gear that's easily on par, if not better, than Blackrock Foundry stuff. Within day 1 of the Foundry, you could have a 670 Apexis piece, up to 3 680 crafted pieces, which actually could be best in slot because of how the stats work in those, and in all likelihood, you will have 4+ High Mall Mythic pieces, which are better than what you could get, well, depending on stats of course, in Blackrock Foundry. Overall, this means that the specialness of the Blackrock Foundry item level has in a way been eroded. If you want a bit of 680 gear, then, well, there's other ways to do that, and it's not completely exclusive to being a heroic Blackrock Foundry raider, and I think that because of that, yeah, maybe it has deteriorated from the sense of reward that people would have got. I suppose combined with how close it is to High Mall's item level, and also when you consider, say, Warforged status, it is easy to see how sometimes people may feel like they're not getting that much of an upgrade from fight to fight. Still though, in Blackrock there are better itemized bits of gear, and there's also tier pieces to be had, and of course Blackrock Foundry is supposed to be in the same tier as High Mall. Generally, a tier means that the gear is roughly of a similar item level. In Mists of Pandaria, you had 489 from normal Mogushan Vaults, and 496 from normal Heart of Fear and Terrace of the Eternal Springs. That was across a 16 boss tier, in comparison to what we currently get in Warlords with a 17 boss tier. Also, those raids did come out quite a bit closer together. Blackrock Foundry was actually quite a bit after High Mall in comparison. I suppose that the smaller item level increase that we got back in, in Mists of Pandaria was maybe more okay because A, the raids did come out quicker, and B, you didn't have things like the powerful garrison raid missions which gave you gear that's higher than your current difficulty level, because by getting gear that's higher than your current difficulty level from High Mall, that means that when you hop into Blackrock Foundry at your difficulty level, the gear that you got from that garrison mission is going to be better than what you're raiding in High Mall. So to put that into numbers, I'm getting 685 gear from my garrison, yet I'm only getting 680 gear from High Mall, and for me, for a few cases, that's meant that there's just some bosses that I don't really care about anymore in terms of gear. Another thing is that it nearly feels like Blizzard are trying to make Blackrock Foundry a part of a completely different tier by having it unlock so much later than what we had going on with the Heart of Fear, and perhaps increasing the item levels here and making it feel even more like a hike up from High Mall is reinforcing the idea that Blackrock Foundry, I suppose, could be considered to almost be a second tier. Just that, of course, there's not actually any tier gear from High Mall. Overall, though, I think I'm okay with what they've done for the reasons that they stated. I still don't think the garrisons should give us gear better than what we raid, with the exception of perhaps normal raid gear, which I think can actually help get people eased into normal raiding, and that's totally a desirable thing. Also, the added flexibility of Warlords of Draenor crafted gear really changes things a lot. Previously, you could actually cover only 2 specific slots. Usually it was like boots and legs or something like that. But now you can cover any slots, any 3 slots anyway, with near best in slot crafted gear, because you can reroll the stats in those bits of gear until they're essentially perfect for you. So now players can essentially fill in gaps that would previously only have been from a future boss, so you could argue that the role of bosses in general for gearing has somewhat diminished in this expansion, and perhaps what Blizzard are fixing with this 5 item level increase is not the problem itself, it's merely just a perception issue that the wider problem of gearing has caused. I suppose we'll have to wait and see as to how they handle gear in the next tier, which certainly will be very interesting, and even just based on the lore, I cannot wait for 6.2 to come out. Anyway, let's quickly just cover the BlizzCon stuff. So BlizzCon is coming. It's going to be on November the 6th to 7th in the Anaheim Convention Center in South California, which is pretty cool. The tickets cost $199 and they'll be up on sale Wednesday, April 15th at 7 PM Pacific and Saturday, April 18th at 10 AM Pacific. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to BlizzCon most likely because of money, and I'll be busy with development because technically we'll be starting our own business for our gap year, so I just don't think I'll have the time to commit to that, nor the money. So I won't be there, but I will probably be here and I'll be giving you all the coverage, and that should be fun. Honestly though, I was expecting an earlier BlizzCon. I would usually do some, like, long speculation in a video, but I spent ages thinking up the 10 minutes that you just listened to, and I've got a university submission tomorrow, so I'm just going to quickly rattle off this BlizzCon stuff. So suffice to say, we're going to hear big things from Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm. Then we'll get a launch date for the next StarCraft 2 expansion, if it's not already a thing, and of course there will be a reveal for the next WoW and Diablo 3 expansion. That stuff just makes sense. It's strange though, with another 2 games, they really are packing a lot into those 2 days. Perhaps they might even move a major announcement away from BlizzCon to another event. But hell if I know, and I really do have to go here, so let me know what you think about that 5 item level increase. It's certainly a new thing. It's not really a measure that Blizzard have taken before, so I'm sure the discussion will be interesting. Anyway, thank you very much for watching the video. Stay tuned for that Mokushan Vaults thingy tomorrow, because the Astral Cloud Serpent is really pretty if you're lucky enough to get it to drop, and I'll see you next time.